Tonight on The ReidOut.
Since I became Attorney General, I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work.
Well, the DOJ sure spoke loudly with its latest filing, revealing that the government believes Trump's team hid the classified documents he stole when he left office, moved them to unsafe places inside Mar-a-Lago, resisted giving them back, and lied about it all. Also tonight, the Trump lawyer who could also find herself under the microscope. Who is Christina Bobs? And is this former OAN host really the best that a former president of the United States could do? Meanwhile, Republicans still can't bring themselves to break with Trump, although we're starting to see some cracks in that blind loyalty. We begin the ReidOut tonight with a footnote in the Justice Department's overnight filing full of stunning new revelations about Trump's handling of highly classified material. The DOJ wrote, "This investigation is not simply about efforts to recover improperly retained presidential records. Moreover, 18 U.S.C. 2071 criminalizes the concealment or removal of government records, including presidential records. In short, this is an investigation about lies, about deceit, and potential obstruction of justice." That is all spelled out in the DOJ's 36-page response to Trump's request for a special master in what is nothing short of a damning report about the lengths to which Trump and his legal team went to withhold subpoenaed information. Just remember, it took 8 months for Trump to turn over the first 15 boxes of documents to the National Archives in January, including classified documents that should never have left the White House to begin with the expectation that that was going to be all of them. Of course, it wasn't. And so the archives turned to the FBI, which after a protracted back and forth with Trump's team came to Mar-a-Lago on June 3rd. And with the aid of a subpoena, received what was again claimed to be the last of the classified documents in Trump's possession. This time with one of his lawyers claiming under oath that all of the documents had been returned. And yet, we now know that that too was a lie, with the DOJ stating in its filing, quote, "The FBI uncovered multiple sources of evidence indicating that the response to the May 11 grand jury subpoena was incomplete and that classified documents remained at the premises," meaning Mar-a-Lago. And perhaps even more alarming, the DOJ added, the government also developed evidence that government records were likely concealed and removed from the storage room, and that efforts were likely taken to obstruct the government's investigation. This included evidence indicating that boxes formerly in the storage room were not returned prior to the counsel's review. That was clearly enough evidence to get a federal judge to sign off on a warrant leading to the search of Mar-a-Lago earlier this month, in which the DOJ indicated 13 boxes or containers contained documents with classification markings, and in all, over 100 unique documents with classification markings, that is more than twice the amount produced on June 3rd, 2022, in response to the grand jury subpoena, were seized. And those documents were found not just in the storage room, where the FBI had been told the remaining documents were held, but from inside Trump's own personal office, including 3 classified documents inside his desk. Take a look at this. This is a picture of what was seized from that office. And as you can see, some of those documents include some of the highest classification levels, with additional markings indicated it included human intelligence. It was so highly classified that the DOJ noted that even the FBI counterintelligence personnel and DOJ attorneys conducting the review required additional clearances before they were permitted to review certain documents. The DOJ also says Trump's request for a special master is unnecessary and would significantly harm governmental interests, including national security interests. And simply put, the former president lacks standing to seek judicial relief or oversight as to presidential records, because those records do not belong to him. They belong to the government. We're still awaiting Trump's legal team to respond to the DOJ filing, and they have until the end of this hour. And joining me now is former CIA Director John Brennan, Melissa Murray, law professor at NYU and former law clerk to Judge Sonia Sotomayor, and Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney and law professor at the University of Alabama. All three are MSNBC analysts. So I want to go through this. I'll start with you, Melissa. This was a fascinating read. Now, this was my morning reading today was this, and even as a non-lawyer, I found it very interesting. They seem to make, in my view, 4 main points. And I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. The first point being, these are not Donald Trump's records. Any presidential records seized pursuant to the search belong to the United States, not to the president, not to the former president. When producing documents, neither counsel nor the custodian even asserted that he had declassified anything. NARA stated the former president could not assert executive privilege because even a former member of the executive branch cannot assert executive privilege against the executive branch. These are executive branch people who wanted to review it. He used to be in the executive branch. You can't have executive branch against yourself. And he can't claim any injury because he didn't own the stuff. It's like if you stole a TV and then the police came to get it and you said, well, that's my TV. It's like, no, you stole that TV. It's not yours. Is that about accurate in your view?
That's exactly right, Joy. And basically, they're laying out the argument that there is no jurisdiction for this court to intervene here because the former president lacks standing to even bring this matter. He doesn't have a possessory interest in these documents. They are owned by the current president of the United States, and that's not him, nor has he been injured in this way because they are not his. And this court really doesn't have any reason to intervene here and to decide this case. So that's first the jurisdictional discussion, and then we'll proceed to the substantive or the merits of the case, why this appointment of a special master lacks merit and fails for all of the reasons that the DOJ has identified.
It's hard for me to imagine, Joyce, a good reason why they would have a special master. Again, they've already reviewed these documents. They've already gone through what could be privilege. There's no lawyer-client privilege because there's no lawyer's office of search. It's not like a Michael Cohen situation. They've already looked through the boxes. By the way, and I want to get you to comment on this as well. One of the things that came through in this filing is that when FBI agents actually met with Donald Trump's representatives in June, they were not allowed to look through these materials. Christine and Bob claimed the lawyers showed the federal offices the boxes. They said they spent some time looking through the materials, but they were prevented from actually doing their job and looking through all the materials. In addition to that, Donald Trump has claimed his passports received, and that's wrong. Well, the location of the passports for the DOJ is actually evidence in the investigation of authorized retention. That just proves the passports are laying next to the documents. That means you had them. Your thoughts?
So the special master request made by Trump turns out to be a real strategic error because it presents DOJ with the opportunity to present its side of the case. And DOJ, you played that wonderful clip from Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, who says DOJ only speaks through its pleadings and through its work in court. And they're speaking very loudly here. And one of the important opportunities that they had was to explain what their evidence means. So, Joy, this example that you cite of the passports, where Trump had expressed outrage, they took my passports, DOJ does a masterful job in this pleading of explaining that they were authorized to take items that were co-located with classified materials or with presidential records. And DOJ goes a step further here and explains that when you find these sorts of items in the same area as these classified materials, it can have evidentiary value. Well, here's what that means. It means that DOJ is just that much closer to showing that the former president knew that those items, the classified materials, the records were there, and that he had the ability to exert some control over them. And this is, of course, essential to establishing that he was in possession of them. So DOJ is beginning to make its case not just to the court, but to the public as well. And it's a persuasive case.
Absolutely. And Director Brennan, just reading through this, the thing that was really shocking is the extent to which it appeared Donald Trump went to move things around, that each time authorities came to take the documents back, he didn't give them everything, but he also seemed to move things. From a national security standpoint, as somebody who was in the business of dealing with our national security, having those documents no longer in this storage room, which we don't even think that was all that secure, but now putting them in his office, having these things in his desk drawer, in his office, in a public club like Mar-a-Lago. What kind of a security threat might that have faced? What kind of, tradecraft might have been used by our adversaries to get at that information if it was that insecurely stored?
Well, Joe, I think we know that both Trump and Mar-a-Lago were high priority intelligence targets when Trump was in office. And I think it became even more of an intelligence target of foreign adversaries after he left office, because there was probably a strong suspicion that there was information there that would have provided some insight into national security. So I'm sure the Russians were looking at it after January 20th of 2021 and trying to determine how best to gain access to Mar-a-Lago. having somebody go in there, either as a member of a cleaning staff or a caterer or a guest, to identify locations in that compound where documents might be stored. Then access those rooms with those documents, probably at a time when Trump was not there, maybe when he decamped to Bedminster, New Jersey last summer, because that minimizes the Secret Service presence on the compound. Then you go in and then you start making copies of all the documents that look important. And if they saw those cover sheets that say top secret, SCI, HCS, those are the ones that they would copy. But they would put those papers and documents back exactly where they found them, and which makes this a nightmare for the intelligence community. Unless there was unfettered, continuous, 24/7 video surveillance coverage of every place that those documents were, the intelligence community will not know whether or not individuals made copies of those highly sensitive documents, which is why I think the damage potentially is incalculable based on the failure to be able to understand exactly what might have been compromised.